He had built an empire from the ground up, respected in boardrooms across the country and celebrated in magazines as a symbol of success. But on this flight, none of that seemed to matter. As he stood at the gate, holding his first-class ticket, the attendant's eyes narrowed. A quiet refusal, a subtle shake of the head, and suddenly he was being told he didn't belong. Confused passengers looked on, some whispering, others staring in silence. What began as a humiliating moment for one man would soon erupt into a chain of events the airline could never have imagined. What could possibly happen next? Marcus Green was no ordinary passenger. At just 42, he was the CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. His life was a story of persistence growing up in a working-class neighborhood, overcoming obstacles at every stage and proving wrong everyone who said he would never make it. His hard work had earned him not only wealth but respect, and this flight was supposed to be just another trip for business. First class was not a luxury for Marcus, it was his normal. Yet as he walked through the terminal, suitcase in hand, he carried himself with the quiet dignity of a man who knew the value of every step that had brought him here. The boarding area buzzed with its usual noise announcements echoing, his families juggling children, business travelers typing furiously on laptops. Marcus slipped into his seat near the gate, sipping coffee while reviewing his notes for an upcoming meeting that could change his company's future. Everything about his morning felt routine, but beneath that normalcy, fate was waiting with something he could never have prepared for. When boarding was announced, Marcus rose, presenting his ticket without hesitation. But instead of a smooth process, he was met with hesitation. The gate agent's eyes lingered on him longer than they should have, then flicked down to the ticket, back up to his face, and back again. That brief pause carried with it a silent judgment one Marcus knew all too well. Something wasn't right, and here's where I want you to pause and think. If you were in Marcus's shoes, successful, deserving, holding a rightful ticket, how would you react if someone looked at you and silently decided you didn't belong? Would you challenge them, or would you stay silent, hoping the truth would speak for itself? Marcus tried to brush off the uneasy feeling, but the words that followed cut deeper than he expected. "Sir, I'm afraid this seat isn't available," the attendant said flatly, sliding the ticket back toward him. He glanced at it again, clear as day. "Seat 2A, first class, day," he calmly explained. But the attendant repeated herself, this time louder, attracting stares. Her tone carried an edge of finality, as though the problem wasn't with the seat, but with him. Other passengers shuffled past, some giving him sympathetic glances, others looking away as if avoiding involvement. A few whispered, shaking their heads. Marcus felt the familiar burn of humiliation creeping up his chest. He had faced prejudice before, but here he was, a black CEO, publicly challenged over something as simple as the right to sit where he had paid to sit. He asked to speak with a supervisor, but the response was dismissive. "You'll have to wait, sir." Minutes stretched painfully as other first-class passengers boarded with ease. A man behind him, dressed casually in jeans and a baseball cap, handed over his ticket. No questions, no hesitation, just a polite smile from the same attendant who had denied Marcus. The difference was unmistakable. As he waited, his mind raced. Should he press harder, cause a scene? But he also knew the dangers of being labeled angry or difficult. Years of experience had taught him the double standard he lived. Under that standing, up for himself, could be twisted into something it wasn't. The humiliation of being sidelined in plain view of dozens of strangers gnawed at him. Still, he stood tall, refusing to let anger show on his face. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a supervisor arrived. Marcus explained again, calmly, professionally. The supervisor glanced at the ticket, then at the agent, who shifted. Uncomfortably, but insisted the seat was already taken. It made no sense. How could a confirmed seat suddenly disappear? Tension rippled through the boarding area. People began filming on their phones. Whispers turned into louder questions. Why won't they let him board? His ticket looks fine? The atmosphere thickened, a storm of unease ready to break. As Marcus stood there, the reality settled in. This wasn't just about him or a seat on a plane. It was about something larger, the silent barriers that still followed him, no matter how high he climbed. And yet what none of them knew was that this confrontation was about to spiral far beyond a single man's humiliation. The next 45 minutes would leave the entire airline scrambling to contain the chaos that was about to unfold. The standoff reached its breaking point when the supervisor made a fateful decision. Marcus was told to step aside while they sorted things out. He stood there, first-class ticket in hand, as others continued boarding. The humiliation was unbearable, but then came the twist no one expected. A group of passengers who had been quietly watching suddenly spoke up. One man raised his voice, saying he paid for that seat. Why are you refusing him? Others chimed in, demanding answers. Within seconds, phones were recording, voices growing louder and tension boiling over. The gate area transformed from uneasy silence to a heated crowd. Then the loudspeaker crackled. A technical delay was announced. But it wasn't the usual mechanical excuse this time. It was chaos at the gate. Airline staff scrambled to calm the growing unrest, but the damage was already done. The incident had turned into a spectacle, spreading across the terminal. Marcus stood motionless, his heart pounding. Every eye was on him, some supportive, some curious, some hostile. He knew this was bigger than his seat. It was about being seen, about dignity, about the truth that no one could now ignore. And as the tension reached its peak, one thought raced through the crowd and through Marcus's own mind. Would this end with the airline finally taking responsibility? Or would they double down and risk igniting a firestorm they couldn't control? What do you think happened next? The airline staff had no choice. With passengers voicing outrage, cameras rolling, and the boarding area nearly at a standstill, the supervisor returned with a different tone. Suddenly, the same attendant who had dismissed Marcus now avoided eye contact as the supervisor apologized and confirmed his original seat, 2A, was indeed his. But by then, the damage was irreparable. The crowd had seen everything. The whispers had turned into a storm, and within minutes, videos began circulating online. Marcus finally boarded, his head held high, but the weight of the moment sat heavy on his shoulders. He wasn't just a CEO taking a seat, he had become the face of an injustice caught in real time. By the time the plane touched down, the story had already spread across social media. Headlines were forming, hashtags were trending, and the airline's carefully polished image was unraveling in the public eye. For Marcus, the victory was bittersweet. He had reclaimed his rightful place, but at a cost, his dignity had been put on trial in front of strangers, reduced to a spectacle because of the color of his skin. Yet, he also knew this moment could spark change because it was no longer just his story. It was a reflection of the countless others who had faced the same silent barriers without anyone noticing. And so, question lingers, how many more? Stories like Marcus's will it take before society truly learns? Before a first-class ticket means the same for everyone, no matter who holds it? Think about that and share your thoughts. Because silence has never been the answer. Asterisk, asterisk, if this story moved you, don't let it end here. Join us at Black Rises, where we bring you powerful stories that uncover truth, expose injustice, and honor resilience. Hit the like button to show your support, subscribe to stand with us, and tap the notification bell so you never miss the next story. Together, we rise. Together, we make a difference.